Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, Editor-in-Chief of Total Retail. I am joined today by Brian Lange, the co-founder of Future Commerce. Brian and I are going to discuss a little bit about his career, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the new report that Future Commerce has released, Vision 2021, kind of an outlook for the retail space in this new year. So thank you for joining me today, Brian.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's great to be here.
So as I noted, why don't we get started by having you tell us a little bit about your career. I noted that you're the co-founder of Future Commerce. Tell us a little bit about Future Commerce and sort of your inspiration for starting the company.
Yeah, Future Commerce is a media and research startup focused on commerce, obviously, and what's next in commerce. And for us, it's all about discussing ideas that are going to shape our world because commerce touches everything. And so when you think about the scope and reach of your transactions, we believe that if we can change how we do commerce, we can actually shape the world together. So we started Future Commerce almost 5 years ago now, and my co-founder and I, Philip Jackson, we were both in the industry and had a lot of really incredible conversations together. Philip already had a successful podcast that had been running for a couple years, and the conversations we had just led to really just a mutual coming together and affinity for really the conversations we weren't having anywhere else, which we realized would probably be interesting to other people. And so we decided to turn it into a podcast, which as we launched it, a lot of people were really compelled by the conversations we were having as well. And so it really has grown from there. And now we're doing original research and reports and, a twice a week email, and we're writing 2,000 word essays every week. And we really have accelerated over the past couple of years and have lots more coming. So very excited about the industry we're in and what's ahead.
Yeah, that's first off, congrats on sort of the growth of the business. You've got your hands full. You've been, all these new things that you're doing, which is great to hear. So we met actually at a NRF event in person when those were still happening at the NRF Big Show in New York. And you talked about commerce, and obviously that can span many different industries, but we focus in with our audience and our publication and podcast on the retail space. So tell us a little bit about, what about the retail space is attractive to you? What do you really find compelling about working in this industry that makes you want to do what you do?
Yeah. So one of the things that when I first got into the world, and I've been doing it, I've been in commerce my entire career, and really like focused in on e-commerce almost 10 years ago. Early days of Magento builds, and digital transformation for enterprise organizations through open source software. It was really, really like compelling stuff, and we've evolved a lot since then. But what really attracted me to it, I think, was the diversity. Retail just it touches everything, and I've learned about so many industries. I've learned about food and bev, and furniture and home, and pet, and just every possible thing that you can buy is something that I've engaged in, let alone B2B. I mean, that's an interesting thing. B2B is such a big part of commerce as well. And so just learning all the intricacies of how everything works in each industry up and down the entire the chain of purchasing. And so it's been quite a ride. I've really enjoyed it, and I've got to work with some incredible companies along the way.
Yeah, that's great. And we're in the same boat. We've actually our parent company, and we've launched a new brand within our group talking about commerce and not specific to retail. We've launched a women leading travel and hospitality brand. So I'm learning about the travel and hospitality space, and kind of this, same with you. You're getting to hear these interesting stories, meet these interesting people, work with these interesting companies. So it's really kind of the diversity is something that's attractive to myself as well. And as you noted, one of the things that you focus on at Future Commerce is obviously what's next, what's coming.
Mhm.
And in that vein, you recently released a new report, Vision 2021. What can you tell our audience about this new report that you've just put out?
Yeah, Vision 2021 is one of my favorite reports we've ever done. We did some original research. We had over 1,000 respondents to a survey that we put out, and it 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 tells a story of the coming year, not just for trends for this year, but trends that are sort of starting in this year as well, and trends that have been maybe started last year and are going to be coming into full swing this year. And so we kind of broke it into three categories: consumer, culture, and modernity. And within each of those, we had 3 to 4 trends. So it's actually 10 in total. And so under consumer, we had the rise of maximalism, shopping as entertainment, brands as performance art, the product eternal. Under culture, digital dysmorphia, the selfie industrial complex, brands and the widening classism, the death and rebirth of neutrality, and then under modernity, the age of fractional ownership, capitalism and the digital commons, and the convergence of the meta and the physical. So I know there's a lot of words in there, a lot of ideas, but I think there's a story here of a coming generation of consumers that the way we shop, the way we purchase, the way we think about digital and physical is all changing. And a lot of that was accelerated due to the pandemic that we've been in for the past year. But it was really an acceleration of a lot of different ways we've been thinking about things. The meta, the digital, is becoming as real to us or even preferred to us than physical is. It's becoming a true extension of self. We're thinking about the way that we can own things differently due to digital and fractional ownership, and we see some really interesting things happening with NFTs, and what the NBA did with Top Shot and so on, and it's really interesting things going on there. At the same time, over the past 20 years of e-commerce, we've built systems that are very specific and very efficient. And we've even talked about experiential retail to some level, but one of the problems with this sort of digital world that we build is it's very isolating. And so now we're starting to see brands as performance art, shopping as entertainment, a lot more like real life things that we liked about retail before in person are starting to happen in digital, and giving retail that sort of retail therapy sort of component that it used to have in person. We sort of lost, and trying to translate the digital hasn't really worked. And so we're looking for new ways and opportunities to make retail something that is actually a community oriented, that engages our whole minds when we're focused on it, that it actually is compelling for real, and not something that we passively do on our phones in isolation by ourselves on Black Friday morning at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
I was going to say, if you had a dollar, or at least this is the case for me. If I had a dollar for every time a retail exec has told me, we're trying to bring that in-store experience, what we're doing in store, to connect with the customer. We just want to replicate that online. We've all heard that so many different times. It's really starting to take hold, and as to your point, the pandemic has certainly been an accelerant there. So looking at the report, and you've created these sort of 3 different channels or sections of it. Was there 1 or 2 things that you uncovered as you did your research for this report, and as you're putting it together, that you think would be most surprising to the readers of the report, or maybe even most surprising to you, that you didn't realize it until you really dug into the data and did some research on it? Like, oh, this trend is, it's accelerating at a much more rapid pace than I even expected.
Yeah, one of those trends is the rise of maximalism. And it's interesting. We've had the gospel of Marie Kondo preached to us for so long. This idea of minimalism, Nordic minimalism, um, but Americans traditionally have been maximalists, and so there's been this sort of cognitive dissonance that's happened in our minds, where we're all operating as maximalists, but we actually are, and we all want to be minimalists, and just recently, I think we've sort of started to embrace the fact that we really are not minimalists, and maximalism is sort of coming back into vogue. And so, some of the research that we saw, 52% of people that we surveyed said they feel that being with their stuff makes them happy. 60% say that surrounding themselves with things they love makes them feel safe and in control, and 22% say they're collectors. And we sort of we left it open for people to talk about some of the absurd things they purchased in the last year, and things like a picture of Alex Trebek to frame, a gold toilet, an old candle, a gold-plated clown statue. There's a gold theme here, I guess. And actually, this one was really interesting, and it plays into something that came later in the report: a completely new smile makeover. And they actually said that was related to the fact that they're looking at themselves over the past year more than they ever have in their entire lives. In fact, if you think about it, in 2020, we looked at ourselves in that the Zoom window as a world more than we ever have in history. We've stared at ourselves more than we have in history. And so what is that doing to our psyches, and how we think about ourselves? 50% of people said they're more aware of their appearance as a result of increased FaceTime and Zoom. 38% agree they're more critical of their appearance and of others, and 26% have upgraded their tech for increased on-screen time. People are actually changing the way that they think about themselves, the world around them, and like how they think about beauty and appearance as a result of all the time we've spent looking at ourselves over the past year. And this is interesting, is we don't think this is going to slow down either. Digital engagement is going to continue to rise. And yeah, we might see it pull back a little bit as everyone's sort of desperate for in-person, but digital engagement is here to stay, and looking at yourself as you do that is here to stay as well. And so it's changing how we think about ourselves. So that was a really interesting takeaway. I think that was kind of mind-blowing. Another trend that was a little bit of an outlier, kind of maybe not quite in the exact same theme as some of the other trends, is that product eternal. And the idea of the product eternal is sort of that virtuous cycle, upcycling. What happens to products after we're done with them? And so this was really interesting. 81% of people that were surveyed have actively secured a second life for their items, whether that be donating to charitable organizations or passing along as a hand-me-down.
That's kind of that re-commerce trend that we're hearing so much about. And
exactly. Exactly. And so there's a lot of opportunity for brands to help facilitate this, and also make sure that people have an outlet for doing this that's really productive and fair use for end of life of products. And so there's interesting technology being released in this vein. Brands like Recurate are making it possible to have owned secondhand channels that are peer-to-peer. Very, very interesting stuff. We just had Recurate on Future Commerce podcasts, and it was one of my favorite interviews of the past year, actually.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you've given some really great information about the kind of the consumer psyche, and then how that obviously relates back to buying and purchase behavior. So let's talk a little bit about that, and some of the consumer behavior, the trends that we're seeing, and just kind of get your thoughts on, ones that you believe are sort of more fleeting in nature. Maybe, these are not, going to sustain themselves, versus those that you think, we've seen a complete sea change here. These are, trends and behaviors that are going to be in place for the long term. Do you have kind of thoughts based on some of the things that you've looked at, and might be able to address that, Brian?
Yeah, definitely. So the rise of maximalism is interesting. I think that the takeaway from that is not that maximalism is here forever, but that Americans love to nerd out on things. And so that I don't think is going away. The idea that we have to have cluttered backgrounds for our Zoom, or or that we have to have all this stuff in our homes, that I mean that's there's going to be ebbs and flows to maximalism versus minimalism. But the idea that people want to go deep on a topic and get obsessed with it and buy, like, as they step into things, actually relates back to an article that I wrote not long ago, called the enthusiast economy. And the enthusiast economy is an idea that we as brands need to provide people with ways to step into becoming an expert in your industry. And so I don't think that's going away, even though minimalism and maximalism may sort of rise and fall. I think another one in here is shopping is entertainment. There's a huge trend right now of live stream shopping, which I think is interesting. And, we see some influence from the East sort of
Oh, for
working its
sure.
way
Yeah.
over to the West. But I don't think that's the end all to be all. Live stream shopping, it's more about communal shopping online. It's digital shopping on, as groups, as together with other people, whether it be people that are, maybe experts or are really fun to engage with, like live stream shopping sort of presents those opportunities, or other people that are our friends, or personal shoppers, or whatever that is. Shopping together is not going away. Live stream shopping is a trend that will lead to more trends. And so I would say, if you just took shopping as entertainment and said, "Oh yeah, that's live stream," that's I think a short-sighted way to look at it.
Yeah. The enthusiast economy, that I find that, idea really interesting too. And I just anecdotally, I'm thinking of all the different, in terms of, in the throes of the pandemic, the people that kind of fully invested themselves into a new hobby or a new thing that they were able to do, because they weren't going out, they weren't vacationing, they weren't traveling. So they picked up all these new hobbies and they invested in, whether, it was like a musical instrument or painting or whatever it is.
Exactly.
And they became super invested in that product category. So that's kind of what you were getting at with that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly what I write about in my article. You could check that at featurecommerce.fm. And I think that also plays into another trend, which we talk about in the report as well. And we actually did an entire report on this back in Q4 of 2020. And that's this idea of the new DIY. And the creator culture, and how that's changing how we think about products and how we think about brand value, and what it means to create something yourself versus have someone create it for you. This is a big trend as well. And that's a whole topic unto itself. We could do a whole podcast on that, Joe. Let's leave that for another time. But
right. So I want to switch gears a little bit. We've talked primarily about all these digital experiences that consumers are having with brands, leading into, a large portion of our audience not only has the digital e-commerce side of their house, but also physical brick and mortar retail. So interested to get your opinion. Maybe you touched on this in the Vision 2021, kind of how bullish or bearish are you on the recovery of the brick and mortar retail space, probably second half of 2021, if everything continues to trend in the direction we're going and the vaccine rollout continues. And, and then also not only, the return of more of a vibrant brick and mortar experience, but also kind of the role that you see physical stores playing in the future of commerce.
Yeah, great questions. So we didn't talk too much about our take on when we're going to come back from the pandemic and when we're going to be at full capacity coming out of 2021. We did talk about the convergence of the meta and the physical, and I'll talk about that in one sec. But I do want to answer your question about when we're going to get back to things coming up here. One thing that caught my eye recently, I think, was Tanger Outlets said that they were back to foot traffic that matched pre-pandemic levels. I don't know, like how if that's true across the board, or like where those numbers came from, or any of that, but I did find that interesting. I do think, I've been to some malls recently, and I did see quite a bit. Just the eye test was, that there was some traffic there.
Yeah.
However, I do think that malls were in decline even prior to the pandemic. And so getting back to pre-pandemic levels isn't necessarily something to be perfectly proud of.
Right. That's not a guarantee of a winning formula there is for sure.
Correct, exactly. And we found this really interesting stat. This is, I think, going to be a little mind blowing for our listeners. Would you? We asked, would you rather interact with people at the mall or at the park? What do you think the split was at the park versus at the mall?
I would say it's probably 3/4 of people said at the park.
That's exactly right. 3/4 of the people that responded said that they would rather interact with people at the park. That I think is a
And
little bit
just for the audience, he didn't give me that answer in advance. That was a lucky guess on my part.
No, that was it was a phenomenal guess, and I wonder how many of the listeners also guessed the same thing as they were listening. I think that was pretty interesting to me. I think people love to shop together, so the fact that people would rather be outside right now, I think, just says a lot about our mindset around, well, really public versus private spaces, and also commerce can be done anywhere now. And so being at the mall isn't necessary like for shopping together even.
Yeah.
So I think that was really interesting. But I also think that, so that convergence of the meta and the physical is really interesting here. And we think about how people are interacting right now as groups. And one of the ways that people are interacting is through gaming, right? And we're doing things that we normally would have done through sort of traditional methods, through games, even right now, having concerts. We're doing like Star Wars announcements on Fortnite. We're releasing new fashion lines. Like Fortnite is a fashion house now. Like it really is. Like it's a true fashion curator. And so I like 1 in 3 of our respondents consider themselves gamers. 1 in 5 would prefer to interact with people on Fortnite rather than in person at a coffee shop, and 62% feel online and offline have converged. They would rather project their whole authentic selves at all times.
Yeah.
This to me is a huge change in how we're going to be thinking about digital going into 2021 and beyond. So it's really not necessarily about when stores open back up, but how we're going to have our digital presence and our physical presence interact with each other as we do open up. And that's what I would start to focus on if I was a retailer right now. Ulta was at the NRF Chapter 1 just back in January. I heard an insane stat. 50% of their shoppers interacted with digital on their phone while they were in store. That is mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
So to me, this is the moment where we can start to say, how do we take our physical stores and optimize them for digital coherence?
Yeah. There's 2 things on that. Brian, did you see, as you were doing your data collection, and if you segmented it like this, did you see generational differences in terms of response? The theory being that the younger consumer is more apt to embrace these online digital experiences versus the older consumer who is kind of more established and set in their ways in terms of shopping in store.
We did, and in fact, I don't have those stats in front of me because we didn't publish by age demographic. But we did see some of that as a part of the raw data, and so that would be I'll have to go back and talk about that when we promote this episode.
Yeah.
But yes, that we definitely did see some interesting trends there, and definitely we've spent a lot of time focused on a consumer. It's really a psychographic, although it does skew towards age demographic, called Carly Can't Afford Real Life Yet. And there's definitely some trends about Carly. We will be doing a mini report on Carly in this upcoming year, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. So kind of follow up to that as well is if you were giving advice to our audience of retailers that are, going through the task of trying to forecast consumer behavior. And I know that's a really tough challenge right now, given all the uncertainty, and how that kind of behavior will impact their businesses in 2021. What would you tell them? What advice could you have as you try to forecast? And you've given some of this information that you've provided in the Vision 2021 report. What would your thoughts be there?
Yeah, so I think something that's really clear right now is that your relationship with your consumer needs to supersede your brand. Consumers need to be engaged sort of at every level in a way that you've not engaged with them before. And you need to be able to make sure that you're providing them with experiences that make sense for them. And so a lot of these trends that we found are all ways to help do that. So invest in getting to know your customers and treat them well now. Like I saw 2020 as actually an opportunity to do that. Customers were going through really, really hard times. And so just getting people to make purchases is, I think, a way of doing commerce that is really behind us. Discounting strategies, why not switch those to charitable giving instead? The things that we used to do to just get people to make purchases need to switch to things that center around our customers and our relationship with them.
Mm-hmm. Sort of showing that human side of the brand is at least you would consider that something to be critical as they're planning out.
Exactly. Yeah. So investing in your team to make sure that they have the ability to actually connect at that level, I think is going to be essential. Figuring out how to scale your customer experience teams and giving them the tool sets they need to be able to capture that information and act on it. So tools like customer service platforms that aggregate what people are the feedback they're providing, and then giving that to your customer service reps in a way that they can actually use it to build real relationships that last beyond single interactions or purchases. Using CDPs to have the right information when you need it. Those are kinds of things that I'm thinking about as far as building relationship with customer. I also think that you need to invest in providing tools and experiences for your customers that are native to what they enjoy. So, when we talked about convergence of the meta and the physical just a second ago, I think that investing in tools that allow for sort of that online, offline, channel agnostic experience are going to be essential for being able to address your customers where they're at. So those types of investments are going to be important.
So that's some great advice, Brian. So we'll close with this. I'm sure there's a whole lot of more of that great insight in your Vision 2021 report from Future Commerce. Why don't you tell our audience where they can find that report?
Yeah, so go to futurecommerce.fm/vision. And that's where you can get to our report. And also if you go to futurecommerce.fm/subscribe, you can get on our email list. We'll send you updates on future reports that we're sending, and we've got tons of great information. We're sending out bi-weekly emails that are really, really interesting. One's called Insiders, one's called The Senses, and you'll learn a lot of different stuff. We try to keep you engaged in ideas that are really going to change how we do commerce together, which in turn will change the world. So
yeah, that's great.
Thank you so much, Joe, for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate the time, Brian. Make sure to go to Future Commerce and check out the report. There's all those other great resources available as well. So I want to again take the opportunity to thank Brian Lange, the co-founder of Future Commerce, for joining us today on Total Retail Talks.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.